Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Urban Wine Club Sip Clip Session. I'm your host, Foti Stamos, and along with me, my co-hosts, Ari Kalos and Katherine Copeland.
Hello, happy Saturday.
What's up, people?
Happy Saturday. And in this segment, guys, we're going to talk about Chianti, a subject and area that's probably known to many, but unfamiliar at the same time.
I'm excited to demystify it.
You're gonna demystify it, but why do you say it's mysterious? Like, what is mysterious about Chianti?
Well, what are your first thoughts? I'm just going to ask you real quickly, and then we'll get into this. When you think of Chianti, you think of what?
Well, okay, Katherine, you're gonna give a serious answer. I'm gonna say I always think of Hannibal Lecter. Every single time. You cannot say Chianti without me thinking of the guy going. So that's all I know about Chianti.
So before Katherine answers, so Hannibal basically says, "I'm going to drink Chianti," right?
So he's going to enjoy one of his victims' livers with some fava beans and a fine Chianti.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Now, is that a good pairing, Foti?
It actually is. I was surprised. I was like, wow, this guy has some really good culinary tactics right there.
They had a sommelier in their writing team.
Right. But, Katherine, I'm sure, as a wine drinker, you've heard Chianti plenty of times.
Yeah, many times. But initially, when I first heard it, I did assume that it was just a type of wine. That's really what I thought. I didn't know much more about what constituted a Chianti. So I'm curious to actually get into the nitty gritty.
So Chianti happens to be one of the most recognized Italian wines because it's been in the market for many years. Probably its introduction came in the 50s. And if you remember that iconic bottle, which was like this vase-shaped glass bottle that was wrapped around in straw. And that was basically the iconic Chianti bottle that was probably placed in every Italian restaurant across the country. So when you sat at your table at this red and white checkerboard tablecloth, there was this bottle in the middle of the table for you.
That's like that's the exact picture of like so many TV shows and movies, and everything that portrays Italy is going to have that iconic bottle that you just described with the checkerboard tablecloth.
Right. So in essence, Chianti is a location. It's an area in the northern parts of Tuscany that makes wine. So what makes it a little confusing is that often enough in the European markets, wines are identified by their location and not so much the grape that they're made from.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
So unless you're really keen on European geography and understand what grows in every region, then you'll understand what you're drinking.
Well, I know exactly what grows in every single region, but I'll just let you talk because.
Yes, exactly.
Put a face to the wine.
Right? So Ari is the walking Vivino app. Is that basically what we want to do in this segment is break it down and make it easy for our folks to understand what they're drinking. And in this topic, Chianti, I think, is an important area and subject because we drink a lot of it as a market, but most of us still don't understand what we're drinking, if that makes any sense. So going back to this again, so Chianti is an area. It's in the north center of Tuscany, and when I say Tuscany, think of Florence. Have you been to Florence before?
I have.
Okay.
Unfortunately not. No.
Not yet.
You have to go. It's beautiful.
So Florence is a great point to kind of understand location-wise. So in this area is the region of Chianti, and in Chianti, it's broken down into 7 different subzones. So that there's other subzones that constitute this area, but the main thing here is that in Chianti, by law, your wine has to be produced by a grape called Sangiovese. So the grape that's being used to make wines in the Chianti area is Sangiovese. So when you're drinking wine that has Chianti on the label, you're drinking Sangiovese.
So if I'm to understand you correctly, Chianti itself is not a wine. Even though the bottle says Chianti, people say, get me a nice Chianti. Chianti is not a wine?
Um, it's a wine from that region, right? But Chianti is not a grape. It's not a method of making wine. It's actually a location, and this goes back to the whole system of how Europeans label their wines, is because they're very disciplined in the fact of when they want to protect an area of where they make wine, there's all these regulations and laws that they have in place. So it goes by the grape that you grow, how you produce your wine, and how you age it and bottle it. And once you meet all those requirements, then the governing body of that area allows you to label your wine with the region or the appellation or the area.
Okay. Now,
So
the grapes that you mentioned for that, though, quick question, it sounded familiar. Is that used for other types of wines? Sangiovese, is that what you said?
yeah, so Sangiovese grows primarily in all of Tuscany. So Tuscany is a pretty big area. It's in the central part of Italy. So
Yeah.
starting from Florence all the way to the top, and it goes
Mhm.
all the way down to an area called Siena. So that whole area grows Sangiovese. So there's
Okay.
other areas that are protected. For example, there's an area called Montalcino, which is the southern part of Tuscany. And there, the main grape that grows there is Sangiovese as well. So their wines are
Okay.
also produced from Sangiovese. So you've heard of a term called Brunello. Brunello di Montalcino is another area on the southern part of Tuscany that their wines are made from the same grape, but obviously different areas.
Okay. Now,
So
is
going
it the
back to
process too?
process as well. So depending on where in Chianti you're situated, there's some different regulations and laws of your aging process and the composition of your wine. So in some parts
Okay.
of Chianti, you're allowed to blend a little bit of some other grapes as well. You're allowed to put a little bit of Cab and Merlot in some circumstances, and some other local grape varieties as well. But the production has to be mainly Sangiovese, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 75% of your production has to be at least Sangiovese grape.
Okay. Got
Right?
it.
So going back to this again, so we want to highlight and let our audience know that when you're drinking wines from Italy that have the term Chianti, you're drinking wine made from the grape Sangiovese.
Always, right?
Always, by law, by law. Now it gets a little more, we don't want to get too technical because we don't want to lose, the information could be overwhelming, but the bottom line is to understand and appreciate wines from this era because they're very disciplined, they're very consistent with their practices, and they make very well balanced wines. That's the term here, balanced. So obviously I don't like to use the word that they make amazing and good wines because it's very subjective. But for me, the point is to understand that they follow certain rules and guidelines, and they're very disciplined in the way they make wine, which allows them to make what's considered well balanced. Well balanced are wines that have, from the start to the finish, enough structure, enough flavor, enough fruit, and a very pleasant finish.
There has to be a reason why this was the iconic bottle on all the tables in all these old films and TV shows, right?
Right. And then I'll take it a step further. Have you ever noticed on the neck of an Italian bottle, there's always these like bands?
No, Foti, I haven't noticed that, but tell me more, please.
Yes. So,
Why is that?
so the Italians, their method of labeling their wines with the integrity and the fact that the producer followed all the guidelines is that they receive a band. It's like a band of approval that this producer met all the requirements, right?
Is that like an official thing?
It's an official thing, yes. So if you see wines that are produced in Italy that don't have the band, these are, in my opinion, winemakers or producers that are actually freestyling it. They're going outside of the regulations and doing what they want. It doesn't mean that they're making worse. Doesn't mean their wines are better or worse. It just means that they decided to be adventurous and they want to do their own thing.
Is there any enforcement on that? Like, if somebody is making a wine that's not Sangiovese and they call it Chianti?
Yeah, they're strict about you. It's not allowed.
Okay.
Not allowed. But see, I get the questions all the time. I get, what does it mean? There's this term on these bands that say either DOC, but this one says DOCG. So basically, this producer went through the whole process, DOCG basically means designation origin of control. That this wine was made basically from soup to nuts, from the farming, the grape growing, the production, the aging, and the bottling that was required by law in this area. This is Chianti Montalbano, which is.
I was just going to ask you, what specifically Chianti is that?
So this is it says it right in the label. Chianti Montalbano is a sub-region of Chianti. It's west of Florence. Beautiful area. I highly recommend visiting there. And that's where this is from. Some other neighboring sub-regions you might be familiar that you might have seen on labels is maybe Chianti Classico. And most folks think that it means classic Chianti, but it's actually an area, not the fact that it's classic Chianti.
Huh.
There's also Chianti. So some of the other sub-regions in Chianti are Chianti Rufina. Rufina is another area in Chianti. There's Chianti Colli Fiorentini. There's Colli Senesi. I can go on. There's Collini Pisani. Pisani is the area where close to the Tower of Pisa. Have you been to the Leaning Tower of Pisa?
I have.
Okay, so that's relatively all in that area.
I took one of those really cool pictures where I stood really far away and I put my hands up like this and it looked like I was holding it up. So
I think
the classic tourist shot.
I think after you took that picture, there was some movement in that tower because of you.
Can I tell you a very silly, stupid thing that has nothing to do with anything? But I ate at a McDonald's that I sat outside staring at the Leaning Tower of Pisa from a McDonald's, just so you could understand American imperialism. But anyway,
leave it to us to ruin the moments.
The best view from any McDonald's anywhere.
Wow.
It was so weird. It was so weird. And I literally went to this McDonald's specifically just to say that I sat at a McDonald's looking at the Leaning Tower of Pisa. But anyway.
So real quickly before we get into the wine, I was just going to make reference. So the band here says DOCG. Some bands say DOC. The difference between DOC, which I just mentioned, was denomination origin of control. This is DOCG. The difference between wines with DOC and DOCG, which this has it, is that this wine or wines that get the G status on their label, it's pretty fun, right? G status, is that
I like that.
They send their production to a panel of judges, and if these judges agree and say that this wine was of quality to their standards, then they get the G, which signifies it's a guaranteed wine of production and quality from the area.
Really?
Guaranteed. Okay. I thought you were going to say grape. Because I looked on the back and this one, it says on the back that it's 100% Sangiovese, so I didn't know if that might have been. Yeah.
But
without going into like a long explanation, is there a quick way to say how these judges can decide that?
I think they drink a lot of wine together, and then they just. Is
it one of those things that's like they're like, all right, this is great wine, or is it like some official way of like designating this?
I'm not. Here's the thing. This is their tradition. I'm not a big fan of like having 12 judges. Be determined or to determine the quality of the wine, even though they're considered professionals in the industry. Not sure how they get their position as judges. Who knows? That's their way of doing things in Italy. For that same matter, for some reason, from a marketing standpoint, anything that has a stamp that says "Made in Italy" always signifies high quality. Fashion, clothes, jewelry, you name it, right? If something says "Made in Italy," right, it always signifies high quality.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, here's 12 judges who are on this board that are pretty much rating wines that they think are of high quality. Now, how they get their job, I have no idea. Who appoints them, I have no idea. Is it connections? Who knows? I'm not going to comment on that.
Well,
but at the end of the day,
it's Europe, so I'm sure that's something to do with that. So,
but I will pay respect to the fact that I'm sure these individuals are highly respected. in their backgrounds and so forth, and they'll be able to determine what they believe is wine that deserves to have the approval of the G status on that bin.
Okay, can I get approved myself with the G status?
Well, we got to talk to these 12 judges.
Last time I stood before 12 judges, I went away for a little while, but
right?
that might give me the G status right there.
Don't worry, Ari. Foti and I will be the judge of that.
So now, getting past all of this information, but what's more important to me is what's in the bottle, right? It's all about So I'm a big fan of wines from this area because stylistically, they're well-balanced wines that are, in my opinion, great with dinner, great on their own, winter, summer, spring. Like they can be consumed any time of the year, in my opinion, as a red wine. The grape Sangiovese in itself is a grape that's thin-skinned. It has a little bit of tannins to the production. There's great fruit, lots of great berry flavors, but it's not too overwhelming, not too overpowering. So why don't we take a moment now to pour ourselves a little bit of this Chianti, even though I've been drinking it since we started.
We all have been. It's okay.
I'm just going to say that I don't care about those 12 judges. I care about what you say, Foti. That's all that matters.
We need to hashtag that.
Hashtag what Foti says. All right, cheers.
Cheers, cheers. I mean,
cheers.
I opened the bottle half hour before we started. So right now for me, this is going on 1 hour of being opened.
Okay.
It's got plenty. Yeah, it was breathing in the bottle. I was sneaking a couple of sips here and there, but I've kept it in a very cool environment. So the bottle's on the chill side, which we talked about in our previous segment. We like to keep our reds in a cool environment, not room temperature. We don't like to the thought of drinking warm red wine doesn't really connect with me. I hope it doesn't connect with you either, but
not anymore.
Right. So the fact that it's in a cool environment, the bottle's been open for a while. We poured ourselves what we consider a very classically styled Italian red wine from Tuscany, primarily from the Chianti area. So they're not big, robust wines. They're considered light to medium. They have plenty of great aromas, but those aromas are combined with berry aromas and like rustic essence. What I mean by rustic, sometimes people say earthy wines that remind them of a barnyard, dust, dirt. That's a little bit of what's happened here as well, because it's a rustic wine that comes from an area that produces wine in the old world fashion. These areas are farmed organically. They're not certified organic, but that's what they've been doing for years. There's very minimal intervention in the winemaking process. The aging is very classic as well from those times. So you get a very rustic red wine.
It's very, very light for a red wine, which you hinted at, but that was the first thing that I noticed, because I also opened up mine about 15 minutes before we started. And it's gotten a little bit better as I've been sipping as well, but it's very light. And even the texture, I noticed it's thinner, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not too thin where it's like watery, because sometimes that's what people think, right? But
no, it's not watery.
It's light enough. Even though I'm not sure if you can see it. It's a light body wine, but if you notice, it's got legs. What do I mean by legs?
Yeah, it does. I was looking at that on the glass.
It's the runs on the glass. And those runs or those legs take a while for them to kind of drip. So the longer they drip, it takes for them to drip down, the more concentration the wine means that the wine is well made. In my opinion, others can debate that about what that means, but the runs take forever to come down. So even though it's a light red wine, it's still got plenty of flavor and structure.
It does. It's not too watery. Yeah, it's certainly not lacking flavor by any means, but it's almost just easier to drink. Like I could picture myself actually having this any day of the year, like you mentioned, because it's not such a really intense, flavorful, thicker type of consistency. This is very, very well balanced. Like you said, you described it perfectly.
And if you're leaning towards, you don't have to have Italian food with this wine. If you're leaning towards Italian, obviously Italian food, depending on how it's made, very heavy into sauces, acidic, sauces, pasta, lots of bread, lots of olive oil, lots of cheeses. You know, you want to make sure you have balance, because if your wine's too heavy, you're going to lose all those wonderful flavors from the dishes. And this is where Chianti, or wine from Chianti, really plays an important role in keeping that balance with food and wine.
You said something very interesting. Something in my experience, and again, I don't know if my experience conveys to everybody else, but my experience is a Chianti like this is something that I would like with food and pairings, and then something that's really bold and really strong and really thick and like a powerful wine. I just want it on its own. I just want to enjoy that wine. But this wine I want to have with my dinner. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I like right now, like I need to eat. It's just for some reason, you know, it's easy enough to sip on, but as you're sipping, you're definitely, you know, you're definitely desiring something to go with it. And that's where sometimes you kind of see salty items go with wines like this perfectly. Because of the dryness, salty elements of food and dry red wines go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Because that dryness on the wine and the saltiness kind of balance each other out.
That is my ideal flavor profile right there. I love salty things and I love dry wine. So you just nailed it.
You need it. Salt and dry, salty food, dry red wines. They were made for each other.
Awesome.
Yep.
So
I do have one more quick question for you as well, Foti. Just quickly before we wrap it up.
Yeah.
The bottle, the iconic bottle that they had Chianti in, where it's extremely round and unlike any other wine bottle. Was that for a specific reason? Did it affect the taste, or was it purely to stand out from the rest of typical wine bottles?
If I'm not mistaken, it was just basically at those times that was their access to their bottles. That was just routine tradition, and it had nothing to do with the flavoring or the aging of the wine. It's just what they chose back then. But yes, they took that look and took advantage of it to market it in the U.S. You know, that was basically a leverage, because there was the only production and bottling that was being done that looked so different than other bottles here in the market.
But it literally is so iconic. It's so iconic.
It's still out there, right? I mean,
oh yeah, absolutely.
60 years and it's still going. Like, people are still like picking up that, you know, bottles like that, because it's been embedded in American culture.
I did a Google search right before we started, and like 90% of the pictures that came up were that that look of the Chianti. I love it.
It's smart. I mean, how many times have I said to you guys that I'm such a sucker for marketing when it comes to wine and wine labels? So especially the bottle like that. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, marketing is everything. And marketing is everything. It really, really is. But
then more importantly, once you open it.
Yeah, I was going to say, marketing is important, but if it has the taste to back it up, then you're gold.
Yeah, but without these sip clips, marketing is nothing.
Yeah, you need the sip clip. And it's funny because like I said, I know every single region. I mean, I could give you the longitude and latitude, but like I really want Foti to just, you know, run wild and let us know his knowledge, because I don't like to step on his toes.
You know, you just mentioned latitude and longitude. That could be another segment at some point, because believe it or not, that's so important to how wine is made. All
right, we'll have a segment we talk about longitudes and latitudes.
Right.
I love it.
It'll be Foti. What do you think of 96.399362?
Hold on, let me put that in my phone. I'll tell you.
Yeah, get out your compass. Oh my gosh, I love it. Every time we do a sip clip, we always think of other ideas. It's great.
Right. So basically, guys, the takeaway here for us is understanding Chianti and what it really means, and demystifying Chianti, that it's a location in northern Tuscany. The main grape that grows in Chianti is Sangiovese, so always remember that. That's what, whenever you're ordering a bottle of wine in a restaurant, hopefully soon, or you're picking up a bottle in your local retail wine shop, or you're ordering your wine from our shopping cart or urban wine club, if you're noticing a bottle of wine that says Chianti on it, you're having Sangiovese.
Good
right?
To know. Good to know.
And they're considered well-balanced wines. They're considered exceptional food wines, which is ideal because we love to have food and wine together. and that hopefully this gives you more of a better appreciation for Chianti. And for those of us that have either heard about it, have been on the fence about it, we definitely want you to try it. We encourage you to try Chianti's because they make amazingly balanced wines.
Awesome. Awesome.
Absolutely.
All right.
10 out of 10 would recommend.
Thanks everybody for watching, listening. Thank you, Foti, for all your amazing knowledge. Katherine, thank you for being with us and giving your insights. And thanks to me for just, everything else. And we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much. And we're out.
Take care,
Right,
everyone.
cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.